The last 4 or 5 years, I think we've really tapered down from our professionalism and our seriousness. But I mean, that's always been me. I remember I asked some people, "Are you okay if I just wear a T-shirt and shorts? I'm off to the lake in a little bit." And they go, "Oh my gosh, if you wore a suit or a tie, we wouldn't be working with you."
I think the big lesson here is just being true to who you are, right? Because then if that's the way you're comfortable, then you're going to come across the most confident version of yourself, right?
For sure. I grew up in Nebraska on a small farm just outside of Omaha. I didn't know that being self-employed was something that I would end up being, but watching my dad, it kind of makes sense with all of the nurturing he did with relationships and developing those connections. We'd just drive around and check on the neighbors, and here I am now after he planted the seed in me. I worked 19 years in higher education, but after that little detour, that I ended up being self-employed myself. So,
Were you like the farm kid that was driving a pickup truck when you were like 11?
I learned how to drive a stick on my grandpa's 56 Chevy. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 stick, but it was hard to learn. And we had a lot of hills in our part of Nebraska, which is contrary to what you see on the interstate. But yeah, and then the grain truck, I didn't drive it very much, but every once in a while I was asked to do that too.
So you went from higher education to real estate, which is like not the same world at all, right?
No.
You know, totally different. What do you see for yourself? What did transition well?
Boy, I think it was the relationships and the connections. A lot of my first clients were either directly students, faculty, or staff that I had worked with, or referrals from those faculty, staff, and students. So that was nice that if I could figure out, they definitely trusted me enough in higher education that they're relying on that trust for me in real estate. And they knew that I'd be, work with them, make sure I was putting their interests at the forefront. So a lot of the things that I had been doing in residence life and in student life carried through to real estate.
So how did you stay in touch with them? How did they know?
In between August and December, when I didn't have a whole lot of business going on, I went through pretty much the entire directory of the University of St. Thomas, UW River Falls, Inver Hills Community College, and any faculty or staff that I had a relationship with, it didn't matter if it was positive or maybe not so positive, they went into my database. And all of the students that I could connect with on Facebook, I did. And 10 years ago, you could actually pull their emails and slide them over to Excel. Now you can't do that as easily anymore, but I put probably 1,000 students into my database. I probably put about 600 to 800 faculty and staff into my database. And a couple of months in, we had a marketing coordinator, Emily was her name, and she came in, she goes, "Was your nose ringing today?" And I go, "What?" And she goes, "Did you know that you're the second highest user of the Coldwell Banker In Touch program that we had for sending out emails and anything electronically?" So I thought that said something about my relationships at that point.
That's very, very cool. So let's give our listeners here and viewers a snapshot of professionally, like where you're at now and what does your business look like, the broker you work at, all that.
Sure. Right now, I'm somewhere in the 40 to 50 transactions a year. It was a little bit higher during that crazy time of COVID. It was lower before 2020. I was starting to ramp up my business, but I kind of hit a plateau, and I kind of even hate to say plateau, of about 30 transactions, and I really wanted to take it to the next level. So I found a marketing company that basically utilized my strengths as invested in my local community, my ability to draw people in, and so I spend some time basically promoting my brand in the River Falls, Hudson area. Pierce St. Croix County is the market. It's exclusive to agents. I'm the only one that works with this company. And it got me from the 30 transactions to 62 transactions that year of 2020. So then I realized that this was good, kept ramping up the online marketing. And so my numbers of transactions have gone down a little bit since then, but the average sales price has gone up. So I'm pretty close to where I've been the last 4 years.
So for you right now as a realtor, what do you think are the biggest challenges like in today's real estate market?
Yeah, I think everybody's just kind of trying to figure out what this whole lawsuit that NAR has settled with means. Previously, you might show buyers homes a few times before you wrote a buyer agency contract with them. Now we're going to have some contract, whether it's a buyer agency agreement or customer agreement in Wisconsin. Pre-agency is another contract that we hardly ever see, but now we're starting to hear about it. But developing those relationships usually takes some time, and now we're going to be on that first time we see a home. Oh, and by the way, you need to sign some paperwork before I can take you into a home. So it's going to be a little bit of a change of how we do things, and I think it's all about transitioning in this market and in this job. And so the good ones will be able to transition fine, and I'm not worried about that part. And in the meantime, I seem to be getting more listings each year as I get more comfortable in my role as a real estate agent too. So the more listings will make it a little bit easier just to get through this whole lawsuit situation as well.
Yeah, I think that's just transparency, for the consumer, of agency transparency. And I think that's going to be, for you guys, a huge opportunity, because I think you're going to be able to, you're super smart, you're going to learn it, you're going to articulate it well, and it's going to be a speed bump.
And I think a lot of people up here don't realize that Minnesota, Wisconsin already had buyer agency agreements. We already disclosed the compensation that we were receiving from the seller or the listing agent. So really nothing changed, but it's because of these other 30-some plus states that did not have buyer agency agreements that we have to all fill out more paperwork and be a little bit more transparent with our clients, which we already were because the other 30 states weren't doing it correctly.
Yeah, I agree. So on the consumer side, so for someone that's looking to sell their house right now, what's the biggest challenge that they're going to be facing when listing a home right now?
Well, I'm a little bit worried for the first-time home buyers that don't have a whole lot of extra cash, because I think there will be some situations where, because of the commission discussion, some sellers will choose to pay a little bit less or none at all, and the buyers are not going to have that ability to come in with cash to make that payment. And we've seen some changes with the different loan providers that we can add the commission into the closing costs, but if the seller's not willing to buckle, then that's going to put the buyer at a disadvantage, and they're going to have to look at other homes instead of the ones that are offering less buyer brokerage commission.
Don't you think the smartest sellers and the best realtors, meaning the ones that are able to articulate it best, are still going to be paying out commission?
Yeah, it'll definitely be the vast majority, but when we have such a low amount of inventory already, even if it's 5 or 10% less, that will be affecting those buyers that don't have the financial means to help pay their buyer, their agent. That's just going to be a few more or less homes that they're going to be able to look at. But yeah, generally speaking, I don't think there's going to be too many changes, but I think the ones that do happen, it's going to affect the first-time home buyers or the people who are already financially at the edge of being able to purchase a home.
Yeah, I can't disagree on that if they refuse to pay it. But just like you're saying, I agree with you. That is going to be a small.
It'll be small.
It's a small group.
But it's going to hurt the ones that need the home the most.
Yeah, always. That's usually the way it works, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the entry level, especially an affordability battle that we have right now with rates and higher prices, that entry level group is already getting pinched pretty hard. So you do an amazing job with buyers, right? And you're typically one of the top buyers agents in Western Wisconsin. So you definitely have a skill set for that, on being able to guide them through and be able to help them get an offer accepted. Can you share some kind of secrets or tactics that you help the buyer with to get an accepted offer? Because I feel like that's a huge challenge right now.
Sure.
Yeah, in multiple offers is specifically.
I have a few techniques that I use that I guess I'll share them. They're not really secrets, or just things that I think work well for me. The first is to have that relationship with your buyers, that they trust you 100%, and that if you're giving them some advice, that they have to agree to it, obviously, but they have to feel comfortable with that decision as well. So one thing I try to encourage them is, if they like to have an inspection, which I always encourage them to have an inspection, but remind them that it can be a deterrent to their offer, that they could just say it's for true health and safety issues only, and that they're willing to cover the first $1,000 or $2,000 in any inspection items that are found during that home inspection. Typically, you don't get that many, and if you do, then the buyer either has to come up with a credit, maybe at closing, to provide to the seller to say that, if you can fix this, we offered you $1,000 or $2,000, so we'll give you that credit at closing to fix these things. But most of the time, you don't even have to use it because the dollar amount doesn't add up to the amount that they're interested in. Another thing I like to do is try to encourage the buyer to buy a home warranty, and that way the seller has peace of mind that for the first year, if anything happens, the buyer can just call the home warranty and have their furnace, AC, water heater, or appliances repaired or replaced.
How much does that cost?
Depending on the state, and if it's whether it's a townhome, condo, or a home, somewhere between $500 and $900 for the year. And then if the buyer says, yeah, I can do that, then I offer to pitch in $70 to $80, I think is the range for the seller side home warranty. So from when that contract is accepted until when it closes, if the furnace, the AC, or the water heater go bad, then I will pitch in the home warranty. And I'll usually even offer to pay the deductible, or it's a service fee of $125 to have that taken care of. And a couple of times the furnace has been kind of on the question mark, and we were able to use that home warranty during the sale to get the furnace repaired. So that's been a nice blessing. Appraisal waivers, those are pretty popular. I don't think I need to describe those too much. Escalation clauses, I think we're seeing less of those these days. But if you have a buyer that doesn't know how many offers they're competing with, they don't know how high they have to go to get the home, sometimes that escalation clause is nice. So then you offer at a certain price point, but we'll go over the next high or the highest offer, maybe $1,000, $2,000, so that we can get the house. And so I use that very rarely, but again, maybe if we think that there might be another offer coming in, but we just don't know if there is or not, or if they don't feel comfortable putting their best price out there right now, but they're willing to go up to a certain amount, I get challenged, well, we could just counter back to that number. That hasn't happened for me yet, and I've won several offers with the escalation clause. And one time I even won it with the escalation clause when they didn't even ask us to increase the purchase price. So we were down
funny. So
$4,000 or $5,000, and they still chose our offer.
So you offered like $250 and said I'll escalate to $260, and then they accepted $250.
Even though they had another offer for $255, and they didn't even ask us to go up.
Well, that's interesting, right? Like that's an interesting listing agent tactic, I would say. You'd at least counter. But
they liked my offer, I guess.
Yeah, they'll take it. So that means they probably liked working with you. How about what do you do to open communication with the listing agent to be able to get that communication line going? Are there specific things, the email, text, call?
I think a lot of it starts way before you send the offer into the agent. It's meeting with them at the Western Wisconsin Realtors Association meetings. We meet quarterly and we see each other there, or the golf tournament that we'll be having in August, and just building those relationships from the beginning so that people know that you're a good communicator, that you want to build a relationship with people. And I always tell my clients that, when you are listing a home and you have to cancel a showing, call me first so I can reach out to the buyer's agent, say, I'm really sorry we had to cancel your showing. That time doesn't work, but could you come back 2 hours later or the next day? They'd love to get you in. And instead of getting just a nasty cancellation on showing time that says we can't let you show our house, then it's just another step that I can build that bridge and say, hey, we really would like to get you in, but that time didn't work. So it's all the small things. A lot of agents don't even call me now when they turn in offers. And I've been hearing that for a while from other people too. It's like, if you're taking the time to write an offer, wouldn't you want to call and explain to the listing agent about how great your buyer is, how great their pre-approval letter is, how they're trying to make it as easy as they can for the seller, and when's a great closing date that would work for your seller, so you can get that into the contract too. But we're not even getting those calls half the time anymore, it seems.
Yeah, we do the same thing, right? We'll call the listing agent on behalf of the client and the buyer's agent just to be able to explain our pre-approval. And it's amazing how often that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're calling, I'm calling, we call it together, right? No, we have open, good communication so they trust
Yeah.
that the process is probably going to be a good experience. Right? Because I would imagine for you as a listing agent, when you just get an offer emailed to you, right? You could literally miss the offer
There's a
by
chance.
accident, right? Like not, where it goes to your junk mail, goes to spam,
Yeah.
right? And if no one even gives you a phone call or a text to say, hey, I sent you an offer, that's just crazy to me that you wouldn't take that one extra step.
Yeah. Well, there's some agents, I don't get their email period because they have a weird email address that doesn't make any sense. And it might even be at Gmail or at Yahoo, but because the name of their username is so weird, it bounces right back. I think Coldwell Banker probably has some good servers in place to make sure we don't get spam emails. So we may not even get it.
We're starting to see that the market is loosening a little bit, right? Days on market is not high by any means, but it's increasing. So what strategies are you using right now to ensure your seller's getting an offer in a reasonable amount of time at the terms they want?
Yeah, I think one thing is making sure that you price it appropriately. And even when you think you price it appropriately, the market might have changed even in that week or two from when you gave them the price to when you listed it. And we don't always know that the market has changed until it's 2 or 3 weeks past that. So a couple of times I've had to chase the price down with my sellers, and nobody's happy then because you're trying to get them the most money that they can so that they're happy and that you get paid more as well. So I think it's having conversations with the sellers right away that say, listen, the market's been a little bit dicey with the high interest rates and buyers are a little skittish right now. So let's price your home at this point and see how it goes. But if we need to do a price adjustment, then we can do a price adjustment within a couple of weeks or a month. And maybe it's a little bit quicker than it was 10 years ago because the market changes, it seems, daily these days. And just keep the sellers involved in the process and communicate with them regularly about what's going on too. They have to know that you're going to market their home to the best of your ability. A lot of agents just put it on the MLS, put a for sale sign in the yard. It might not even be a big for sale sign in the yard. They might just stick their little temporary sign in the yard and hope that somebody sees it or calls based on it being on the MLS. So my marketing plan, I put it on Facebook. It gets 20,000 plus views, a walkthrough video of the home, just describing a few of the benefits of the home to people who might just be seeing it out there in Facebook land. And then,
Yeah, how come you get so many views?
so
Is that part of the marketing company?
it is, yeah.
Okay.
They have intentional redirection, and I do spend money on Facebook so that I do get the numbers. I think it's kind of funny when someone puts their Facebook video out there, no sponsor, no nothing, and it's been viewed like 50, 60 times. It's like, oh, they could really do a lot better. Even putting $25 behind a video would probably get you a couple thousand views.
So it doesn't take much.
It doesn't take a whole lot.
Okay.
A lot of it, though, is I have a marketing team because I know that they're going to put that money to good use to people who have already clicked on my ads. They maybe are in a retargeting audience from other things that I've put on Facebook. And I have some buyer lists that go and they rotate through Facebook occasionally. And once they click on a buyer list, then I know that they're a little bit more likely to be a buyer than just someone that's scrolling through. And so they're automatically put into the retargeting list as well.
Yeah, I feel like you're like the king of cheesy.
Yeah, try to be.
Yeah, like that's totally your humor and your style. And I see it on social media and it works like really well for you.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody, you got some people that are trying to be like, Ken and Barbie, online and look all perfect. And I feel like the way you put yourself on social media and videos is you. Right? Like you don't try to be just like you showing up here today and you saying like, hey, I'm going to wear my polo and like, this is how I show up. So it's like who you see here on video is who you get to hire. Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, I think people appreciate that too. The last 4 or 5 years, I think we've really tapered down from our professionalism and our seriousness. But I mean, that's always been me. I remember I asked some people that were my age before COVID, I go, are you okay if I just wear a t-shirt and some shorts? I'm off to the lake in a little bit. And they go, oh my gosh, if you wore a suit or a tie, we wouldn't be working with you. It's like, okay, good to hear. So there are showings, if I have a relationship with those clients, that, yeah, I'll wear my nice t-shirts. I'm not going to wear junky ones, and my pants won't have any holes in them, but, the cargo shorts, and then I can do whatever I want the rest of the day after the showings are done.
I think the big lesson here is just being true to who you are, right? Because then if that's the way you're comfortable, then you're going to come across the most confident version of yourself,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But back to the videos, those listing videos, I bought a house off of a Facebook listing video where my wife and I 5 years ago were interested in buying a new home, and like now the inventory was so low, like you go online and put in your little bucket of like your price range, and you're like, okay, there's 3 houses for sale. It's like, this is not much for options. And back then you could market coming soons. It was a little different. There was like, that was right around when the rules changed. But a local agent had posted a video of a 2-story home, and my wife was like, hey, this agent had this video posted, and we had to like go in and dig for it a little bit, but we found it, right? And she's like, yeah, that's the house. And we went and looked at it, and we bought it, right? And then I sold it 9 months later. That's a whole different story. But all that I'm getting at is we literally, and the funny thing was, so when I listed my home, and I want to preface this is 5 years ago, and a lot has changed in the real estate world. We've had a boom and a bust, right? Like in that 5 years. But when I sold my house then on Troy Burton Golf Course, I told the agent, like, I need a Facebook video, right? I'm going to share it all over the place. Like, we got to post it online. And there wasn't as many home tours being posted then as there is now. And the agent, funny thing, still a friend of mine, but I'm like, we need to post it right away. I will share it. He's like, no one buys a house off of a video, right? And I was like, I just bought your listing off of video. And I think that was like a learning moment for him too, where he was thinking he was doing it just for branding. Yeah. But really,
it's for the client.
Yeah, it's for the client. Like people find it because they search it too, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's always my attitude, is that it's always for the client first. And yeah, it's promoting myself, but I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it to sell the house. So, and then if someone else wants to look at a different house that's not this one, I'll still see if they have interest in my listing. But if they want to see something else, then yeah, that's great. They turned into a potential client as well. But it's about selling the house. And if you want to look at my videos, Andy, I'm happy to take an offer on any of my listing videos.
Yeah. So why are you so good at converting internet leads?
It's just the follow-up, and I have to admit I'm not as good as it the last couple of years as I was before. My first year, we had free Realtor.com leads for working at Coldwell Banker, and several of them turned into clients. And right away, I could see these Realtor.com leads are pretty strong. So I ended up spending close to $10,000 my second and third year on Realtor.com leads, and it paid in dividends. So it was a solid lead source for me. But then just like right after COVID, pretty much the online leads, the ability to have them turn into a solid buyer has definitely decreased. And so I've put my money more into Facebook marketing. And the company I work for, they call it the high hanging fruit. They may not be ready to buy today, but maybe in 6 months or a year or 18 months, they're going to see me on Facebook every day during that time. They're going to get tired of me possibly, but they're also going to know that I'm a part of the community that's still around and still selling and present. And so I have had people reach out to me that have seen my Facebook stuff. I get online leads that are from friends who have people who are looking, that they just see me online and they reached out and say, could you help one of my friends out now? So
yeah, that's more of a referral, right?
Yeah,
than even an online lead. Yeah. So how about someone like that comes to you and they say, so in today's market, I'm seeing crazy pent up demand for the move up buyer, because they've been sitting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I saw a stat that the average person has been in their house 10 years. So they get this really low basis on their house, but they're ready. Like they got married, they had the kid or the second kid or new job, so now they can afford more. Can you give me some strategies or tactics to be able to help that person move up to the next home? Like when should they be in touch with you? How early?
Yeah, I mean, it could be several years before they're ready to make that move because there might be things that either their house needs or they need to prepare for to be able to make that move. They have to know how they're going to finance their second home. Is it based off of the proceeds from their home sold, or is there accounts that they can access or a gift that they can receive to help make that purchase for a second home? Home sale contingent offers were really difficult 3 or 4 years ago. They're a little bit easier now, but still not always ideal for the seller's situation. And the seller's going to make their choices based on what's the best for them. So I have had a couple of those situations though recently where you just really convince the seller and the listing agent that, their home is in a great area. It's going to be marketed appropriately. It's going to be priced right. Shouldn't have any trouble selling. Whereas there's some spots where if you hear that there's an offer coming from Timbuktu and they're going to price it $50,000 over what the market is, you probably want to stay away from that as a seller or listing agent because they're probably going to be waiting a while before their home can sell.
We have one of those right now.
Yeah.
Or we did have one. Then no fault of your own. Let's be clear on that. So the person that is contingent, right, which I'm seeing that loosen right now. So it's summer 2024, and historically, the market kind of peaks. Yeah. We're kind of like just over the peak of sales. There's a bell curve in the Twin Cities and western Wisconsin. And so now we're just on the other side of it. So then contingent offers are entertained. So what can a seller do to be ready for the contingent to buy the next house, like with you in advance? So they're out looking. They're going to be contingent on a home sale. What can they do to make sure they're ready?
Yeah, I mean, what I always tell my sellers that are in that situation is, let's fill out the paperwork. I can mention it to my office. I can find buyers myself that might be interested in your home. If we can get you an offer before we even put the offer on the next one, with the contingency that the buyer for your home has to wait until you have a successful closing to move in, that makes a huge difference. Getting the photos ready, getting the house just basically ready so that when you're ready to move forward with putting an offer on a home, that you can switch the click on or flip the switch on the MLS and just go live as soon as possible.
So you could have it all, like you could literally have their listing like uploaded, done, but it's not live.
Not live. It's in the withheld status is what we call it.
Okay.
All of the photos have already been generated, and they have little nice, pretty captions underneath, which AI can now do for you too, which I try not to do much because it kind of sounds weird. But yeah.
But can you market it to your broker? So can you market it within Coldwell if you have a withheld?
We can market withheld listings to our brokerage only. So anyone that's tied in with Coldwell Banker Realty in Wisconsin and Minnesota, there's some, I can't think of what they're, it's like sister companies, but they're not tied in with the Coldwell Banker directly. So the Coldwell Banker office in Eau Claire, for example, I cannot share it with them because they have a different brokerage. But the Coldwell Banker Realty agents in the Twin Cities and Western
Which is a big
Wisconsin,
brokerage.
over 2,000 agents.
Yeah, so you can
offices.
also see all of this in the background. So that is, so for the consumer, working with someone at a bigger brokerage, that's an advantage.
For sure. We get daily emails that say, these are buyer needs, these are some seller needs, and if there's any connections. I actually have one, I have reached out to my buyer to see if I can get into withheld listing in Hudson in the next couple of days.
So you can show it too?
We can show it too, as long as it's withheld.
As long as it's withheld. Okay, very cool. So they're all teed up, they're ready to go. So then they can make an offer, you help do all the things that you do on the buy side.
Yeah.
And when that offer gets accepted, you literally just click a button and they're live.
And off to the races.
Perfect. So you could be, I get an offer accepted at 5 p.m. on a Tuesday and you're like, we're going live 8 a.m. tomorrow. Clean up a little bit around the house.
Yep.
Okay, that's huge.
Make sure you vacuum.
Yeah, I think a lot of agents don't actually do that though. Because I'll see it where they're saying, oh, they're not going to be ready for 2 or 3 weeks to put the house on the market.
Yeah, if you've had that relationship with your clients, they already know what to do and they should be working on it. So
Yeah. To me, it seems like you're missing the opportunity to be on the market as quickly as possible. Time's of the essence in a seasonal market like we're in.
it definitely is.
What do you think that you're really good at? Like, for you, for your success, is there something that just comes natural, or maybe you've honed in over time that you're just exceptional at, then that helps you succeed at a high level?
I think we've talked a little bit about all of it. The communication and the relationship building, I think, is a strength of mine. The people see me as honest and full of integrity, which obviously helps in this profession. The skills sets that I have in marketing help. Knowing the contracts, reading the contracts, it's amazing how many times I get an offer and half of the counter offer is just correcting the agent's mistakes because they didn't read it clearly. Maybe they're a Minnesota agent with a Wisconsin license that doesn't see it too often. So making sure that you know the contracts and ways that you can use that contract for your benefit for your clients too.
Yeah. I really feel like you're kind of a deep thinker. So you will take the time to think something all the way through and to avoid a pitfall.
Yeah.
Right.
I couldn't sleep last night actually because I was focused on one of my listings that's not selling, and it just seems like it's getting great feedback except for a couple of things, but just keeping us from getting that listing. And the price point I think is just perfect for it too. But it's like, oh man, what can I do? So I woke up like 3 or 4 times last night just trying to think, what can I do to market this home differently, or what can we do to get more buyers in that are interested and don't think that the hill is too steep. So.
Yeah, I love that because I feel like you really take things personally in a way that motivates you, not in a way that demotivates you, right?
Yeah.
Like where you're really taking the time to think about that, everything for the client and all the details and thinking that all the way through. So it's exceptional. Yeah. So, well, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity for you to be on the podcast today. I think you're one of the best in the business, and specifically in Western Wisconsin, you absolutely rock it. So thanks for taking the time to hang out.
Thanks, Andy.